Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World Interview from Vilnius. As the ancient military strategist Sun Tzu said, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. This wisdom counts more than 2,000 years, but looks like we still haven't learned that, unlike some other countries. To discuss hybrid warfare and threats, we are joined today by the board member of Civic Resilience Initiative, Lukas Andriukaitis. Hello, Lukas, and very glad to see you here with us today.
Hello, it's great to be here.
First of all, hybrid threats in the internet. What are they?
Well, it is a bit of an umbrella term, and I think it depends on who describes this actual term. I would say it consists of many things. It could be anything from hacking to cyber attacks to social engineering to blatant disinformation. You could add it to the list as well. I think the main thing that separates it's the motivation. So, you know,
okay.
In one case, a social engineering experiment by pretending someone else could be just purely monetary motivated, right? You just want to get someone's money, right? And you pretend to be, a grandchild who's in trouble, and then you sort of...
So is this a hybrid threat? Or
I would say not really, because if money is the sole purpose, it's not. But if exactly the same thing is being done to achieve some political gain, to cause instability, especially if it's combined with other methods, this could be a hybrid threat. So it's all about what you're trying to achieve with these actions.
We discussed disinformation many times.
Mm-hmm.
This time I would like to discuss cyber attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, let's take the cyber attack that Vilnius suffered about a year ago, when nearly 900 reports were received in Lithuania about allegedly mined Lithuanians' kindergartens and schools. Mm-hmm. Well, all of them were false at that time, but still, yep. we had the fact and, yep. And some consequences of that as well. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, what was the goal of that cyber attack?
Most likely, the goal was to cause instability as the primary goal. The secondary could be to test our systems, to see what's the volume that our government agencies can deal with. So most likely, they were trying to achieve both. And this is a good example, as you said, of the cyber hybrid attack, because the goal was not monetary. The goal was actually something completely different, right? So I think this is a very good example. Okay,
so you've mentioned this. It was a good test for the system. People that organize such cyber attacks, what do they want to see as a result of this test?
Part of it could be to see which government agency websites, which individuals, which media outlets you can hack by using a variety of things like plain cyber attacks, social engineering, and other things. So to see which targets are sort of the weakest links. So this is a very common goal, because they try to establish a potential network of individuals, websites which they could target when the time, when the D-Day comes. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one of the goals. The other goal is to see the reaction, right? So for example, if you send out 30 threats that 30 schools are currently on mined, you can see how many patrols we have, how many officers can come to the place, and how they react. What's the algorithm for their response? So this is another potential goal that they might have.
Do you think those, well, let's call them cyber attackers, if I may say that, do you think they pay attention to society's reaction to what happens?
I think they are interested in that, right? To see, on two sides, right? First of all, another goal could be to sow distrust in society towards the government, right? That the government is unable to take care of the individuals. But overall, it is to test. It's sort of a litmus test, right? To see what are the attitudes. Is the society frightened? How easy it is to frighten them? And what happens when they are frightened, right? Do people,
Pack their things and run away?
That's one of the things, right? The other could be maybe they're going to protest against. I don't know. It really depends. Of course, maybe for a country like Lithuania, where civic society overall I think is in pretty good shape, to expect that protests would erupt out of nowhere, it is quite hard. But in some other countries, which are maybe the mentality is a bit more hot, this could be an actual goal. Yeah.
Okay, then here's the question. Then you've already mentioned so how these cyber attacks are organized. So could you maybe shed more light on how are they organized, and what is more important, what are the ways to counter them? Again,
I mean, usually the attacks, the examples that I have are more related with either disinformation or social engineering. So this is sort of my area that I see the most of examples from. I could say like Operation Ghostwriter that happens a few iterations in the past few years. So I see the most of social engineering, meaning phishing and other similar things when people are tricked into clicking on a link or going to a specific website, and the attackers, or as we call them, threat actors, are able to infiltrate your systems, infiltrate your email accounts, and so on and so on. And this is sort of an open door. And why am I mentioning this example? Because not only it is the most common, but I would say it's the most effective, because to create a social engineering attack, you don't need very specific IT skills. You don't need to have like a group of hackers that would try to infiltrate your systems the hard way, right? Hacking and so on and so on. So sort of you trust your success as a threat actor on the gullibility, or in some cases maybe recklessness of the people you're trying to target, or maybe the lack of knowledge as well.
Attacks on personal data or identity attacks. That's also a hybrid warfare. So what are these, and what should people know in order to protect themselves?
Sure. Again, my answer will be very subjective from my open source analyst's perspective, right? I always say that the best way to defend yourself is to understand how to verify information, how to check it, to have the basic skills and basic tools to sort of protect maybe from the basic phishing attacks and maybe hacking and Trojans and stuff, you know, the viruses and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like identity thefts can also be going in a couple directions. In Lithuania, I would say it is slightly more popular to see money-driven goals attached to them, right? So oftentimes someone is pretending to be a well-known star for them to buy a product, for them to open a link, for them to, you know, get some money out of it. Sometimes it is being used to convey a message, to cause panic, and usually it is orchestrated together with other parts of the hybrid threats. So it's very uncommon to see, if we're talking about hybrid threats, to see parts of it. Usually it's
combined.
Yeah,
it's combined.
It's like combined arms attack. That's when it becomes effective. Usually there's a disinformation attack combined with like an infiltration, combined with maybe a cyber attack. Someone is losing access to their email. So the chaos is usually being, you know, produced by combining a number of these methods, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, let's now then talk about the role of the state in combating data breaches. So what should the state do to protect its citizens, and to what extent should it intervene to avoid becoming a police state?
That's a very excellent question. It really, I guess, it depends on the worldview of who you ask. I personally would say that the state should at least take care of the, you know, strategic infrastructure of the country itself, and I wouldn't expect an officer coming in and installing an antivirus system into my personal laptop, right? So I think that the government should provide the governmental infrastructure as protection, and maybe some sort of tips, tricks, education towards the general population. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own actions, and in some cases for your own stupidity, right? So if you're clicking on a silly link without checking it, it's not government's fault and it's not government's prerogative
it's
to
your
take
own
care of
fault.
it.
That's
exactly.
right. That's right. Another interesting question is about role of civilians, because as you've already mentioned, we here in Lithuania, we have a, well, really civic society, which helps us to somehow, well, let's say, avoid those maybe threats to some extent. So how big is it? How big is this role when talking about hybrid threats?
It is a very open-ended question, right? It depends on the part of the civic society that you're connected to. For example, I'm a member of Rifleman Union, so there's a big focus for the members to understand how these threats work, how to protect ourselves, our families, and so on. There are numerous NGOs as well, like Civic Resilience Initiative, that we deal in various education strategies. So one of our main focus groups are the slightly elderly people who are still active online, still active on the computers, right, IT, but maybe are lacking some of the knowledge how cybersecurity works or how disinformation works or anything along those lines. So it really depends. I would say compared with other countries, Lithuania is definitely not the least in the civic society.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
We can always do better, but overall, the probability or the chances for you to get access to this knowledge or help, it is quite big, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, there's an interesting thing that you've already mentioned during the interview, sowing untrust. So according to the statistics, Lithuanians have the least trust in political parties, Lithuanian parliament, and government. How big of an issue is this?
It is, I guess, easier to manipulate individuals on a more disinformation psyops level when people are naturally not as trustful in these institutions. And a lot of political scientists, I would say, agree that this is an issue. Because of the possible threats. However, we should see also the full picture, right? We should see the Lithuanians trust very much in the Lithuanian military, trust in certain institutions. So it would be interesting to understand the actual reasons behind why these specific government agencies are not the most trusted, and to see like if they're more willing to trust, some of the other ones. So I agree, these political connected institutions are not the best, and the main in the big picture, I guess the main threat is that people who do not trust the government might not be willing to defend it when the time comes, right? So this is the main threat. But at the same time, if we look at the full picture, I wouldn't say that we see the view as dramatic as this.
What should be a proper response to any hybrid threats?
Yeah, I guess on the governmental level should be to, first of all, stop it. Second of all, understand how it worked and what worked, what not. And third of all, which is very, very important, is to find who's behind it and to have some repercussions. And I keep saying the same thing when I talk about disinformation, because I think disinformation is part of the hybrid threats, could be part of it as well. And we still have loopholes in our legal system where it is hard to target some of those individuals, right? If we cannot make clear connections, if we cannot clearly identify who they were, and especially if they're working in the gray zone, such as disinfo or psyops, then it's very hard for us to have any actions against them, right? And if it's not a single action and continues to grow, then I think we're failing as a state to properly react to these kind of threats.
Okay, what I can say in this situation, just stay aware, kids. Stay away, stay cautious. Lukas, thank you for joining us today, and I really hope to see you once again.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was the board member of Civic Resilience Initiative, Lukas Andriukaitis. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.